Today's video, I'm going to share with you the top 10 cons of living in Utah. So if you want to learn the bad things about actually living in Utah, then keep watching this video. Con number 10 on my list, and that's taxes. So taxes in Utah are different than other states. We have a 4.65% flat income tax here and corporate tax. And they do tax your Social Security income and some other things. So you're going to need to do some research with a CPA as far as that goes. But depending upon where you're moving from around the US or outside the country, you're going to need to know that we have a flat tax here, which for me, that is a cool thing because then I really like the fact that no matter how much you earn, you're going to be paying the same amount. But we relocated from Nashville where they had no state income tax. So this was a con for us for sure moving here. Con number 9 was something I didn't really research before we moved to Utah, and that's that there's no gambling and no lottery in the state of Utah. And while the lottery wasn't a really big deal, recently they've had these huge $1 billion plus lottery things that would have been kind of cool to buy a couple tickets just so we had a chance to win. But if you want to do any gambling, you're going to need to go to Nevada, which is a place called Wendover, and that's out Interstate 80. It's about an hour and 45 minutes from Salt Lake City. Or you can go up into Idaho, and that's 3.5, 4-hour drive to some Indian casinos. And those casinos don't have all the table games, well, mainly slots. Otherwise, you do what I've done since we moved here, and that's we've driven to Vegas, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times, something like that. And that's about a 5.5-hour drive just right down Interstate 15. And Vegas is right, or the strip is right off Interstate 15. So you get on one freeway and you never have to change. Super nice drive because you can do 80, 85, 90 all the way down there. Relatively relaxing for the most part, other than if you travel on the peak times, then you get stuck in 80-mile-an-hour traffic. But other than that, it's fabulous to drive down there. And they have this really cool creamery that you can go to in Beaver, Utah. So make sure you stop there if you're driving down there. That's not halfway, but it's a good stopping point on the way down. And then St. George would be kind of your other stopping point. Well, but that's on number 9, no gambling. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Greg Spackman. I'm with the Living in Salt Lake City channel. So if you want to learn everything about what it's like to live here, eat here, sleep here, play here in the Utah area, the whole state, especially the Salt Lake City area, then click the subscribe button and the bell to be notified every time I do new videos. Getting a ton of people lately that have been reaching out about making that move here to Utah, and I absolutely love it. So if that's you, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. I've got your back if you're moving here to Utah. On number 8 about living in Utah is going to be your limited nightlife. So if you are So Utah in general is really bad as far as clubs go, dancing places go, bars go. Anything that has to do with alcohol really is not the best here in Utah. There are places in some areas you're going to find, sure you'll find some, but you're not going to find nothing like you can find in other states. And especially if you're moving from Nashville, you're going to know that their downtown is amazing. Ours. So please do your research or reach out to me if you're moving to an area and that's important to you to have a big nightlife. And it depends which area of Utah that you're wanting to live in. On number 8 of living in Utah is going to be our air quality. We have some poor air quality certain times a year. It's really, really bad. Typically from November through April, we have something called the inversion layer where warm air gets trapped by cold air. So that's awful. Allergies, most part of living here, are not really, really bad. However, since we've been here 2 years, kind of crept up on me and my sons this year. Wife doesn't really have them, my daughter, but my sons and I, we get them. So we're not really sure if it's normal or if it's just because this year we got so much snow, so everything grew and everything stayed green all year long. We'll just see if that happens this year. We won't know how much snow we get, but we do have snow now and it's early October already. So we'll just see how that goes for the next year. Con number 7 of living in Utah is a very, very conservative state. Other than living in Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, Everywhere else, for the most part, is really, really red. Voted Trump for last presidency, votes Republican on every election for the most part. So if that is important to you, then you need to reach out and we can uh, help you, guide you in that direction. However, doesn't seem to be any sort of issue where we live in the Salt Lake City area or anywhere else that I've heard. If you aren't one way or the other, just know that there are certain things seem to bother different people for different. Con number 6 of living in Utah. Utah is a very, very outdoorsy state. You aren't a big fan of the outdoors, from camping and fishing and hiking, 4x4ing and stargazing, just anything that has to do with the outdoors, then you may not really enjoy Utah to the full potential. And there may be other states that are better for you. However, you may like our dry climate and not it not being humid here in Utah, but just know that Utah is very, very set outdoor stuff, from 5 national parks you can do, just a ton of things to do in the outdoors. And hopefully that's one of the reasons that you're making that move to Utah, like us, to do all the things you can do in the outdoors and enjoy it. On number 5 of living in Utah is the restrictive alcohol laws that they have in Utah. These laws are terrible, but you can only buy beer and hard seltzer at the grocery store and gas stations. While I was used to being able to buy wine at the grocery store, you can't. Or you can't buy Jack Daniels, for instance, at the grocery store. The DUI limit here is 0.05%, which really isn't a bad thing, since if you drink, you probably shouldn't be driving anyway. And it's super easy nowadays to grab an Uber home. The state-run liquor stores all have markups on the liquor, and it's all fixed pricing, which totally sucks. And they're closed on Sunday and holidays, so you need to check what store hours and stuff like that. But no, if you want to watch an NFL football game and you forgot beer, you ain't going to be buying beer on Sunday. Most of the state only allows 3% beer to be sold in bars and restaurants and at the grocery store and gas stations. So just know that. Most restaurants will require you to buy some food if you're going to buy alcohol. Seems really dumb. If I want to go into a bar, sit down and watch, college football, why can't I grab a beer without buying food? I guess my biggest issue with the alcohol rules here are that you can't buy wine at the grocery. I wanted it the other day because we were going to cook something and it required wine for the recipe. And I went to the grocery store to buy all the other stuff for it and went try to find the wine aisle. Remember that they don't have it there. So I had to make a special trip to the state-run liquor store and deal with that. High 80s that day. And my groceries had to sit in the car while I went inside to buy a bottle of wine. On number 4 of living in Utah, so kind of a pro for part of it, but the weather. So the weather, when you're living here in Utah, you're going to have all 4 seasons. So if you want those, that's awesome. We don't get a ton of snow, but we get snow. So I'm just going to go through each season for you, since we've been through it twice now, and this is our 3rd fall now. So it's fall right now. The leaves are starting to change. You can see the hillsides starting to change colors, which looks super, super cool. We will probably go do a Parley's Canyon drive tour the next couple weeks once we hear that the leaves are the right colors and they're changed to the right thing. We'll go do that drive. It's starting to get chillier. So this week it was 50s. Then it heats up to the 70s next week, which is awesome. So we're going to see anywhere 50s to 70s in the fall. And the mountaintops have snow on them. We have not gotten any snow where we are. It's just chilly and it rained a few days. But that covers fall. In the winter here so far, the first year it snowed, say 2 to 3 feet, not all at once. But I think we got a good 12, 24 inches the first time it snowed, which was awesome. The kids got to go outside and build snowmen and play and throw snowballs. All of that they couldn't really do in Nashville, other than I think one time good enough. So that was amazing for them to be able to do this. Last year, we got the incredible amount of snow, which everywhere got snow and rain. So see if that's going to be the normal thing here this year. But everybody that I talked to that's from Utah told me that it wasn't a normal thing. So we had no trouble driving either of our 2 vehicles. I have a 4x4, my Jeep, and my wife has an all-wheel drive vehicle. So we were able to drive every single day, all of last year, all of the previous year, even when it snowed. No issues for us. My daughter borrowed my car, I think, twice since we've lived here in Utah because we felt it was safer for her to drive it. This year she got an all-wheel drive vehicle now, so now she won't have that trouble at all. So what I typically recommend that for people that have relocated here that aren't snowy areas and don't have any experience driving in the snow, is make sure that you have one of your vehicles have all-wheel drive, if not both of them. Nowadays, it's not really a big deal to add it or to have it added to your car, but it's very, very helpful here in Utah. You're going to see Subarus are the car of Utah. So that kind of touches on the winter time. We will get 12, 24, 48 inches of snow through the whole winter time, and it ends in Aprilish time when it starts to warm up, and that leads us to spring. Spring, both years were really, really nice. Got done with being cold over the winter time, and it heated back up, so it starts to get warmer. One other thing I should mention about fall. Right now, it's dark at 7 a.m. Just 2 weeks ago, it wasn't dark at 7 a.m. So that's one thing I don't like is getting up and having it be dark outside. So now we're going to be dealing with it being dark early in the morning, and then it's going to keep getting dark closer and closer till I think January, somewhere in that range, it starts to go the opposite direction. But it will get dark early in the evening and it stays dark early in the morning. So back to spring. Spring is amazing. One of the best times of year. And then that leads us back to summer. And summertime is amazing here. Get to camp, fish, hike, everything you want to do in the outdoors. Get to do other than snow ski. And so Utah does experience both extreme heat and extreme cold, which can be difficult for some people to tolerate. So you need to be aware of that as far as the weather goes. I also want to mention that we're landlocked. So I kind of got used to this when we moved to Nashville since it's surrounded by other states. But if you're coming from one of the coasts, the beach here is 10-hour drive out to Los Angeles, Southern California area, or it's about a 2-hour flight, which getting there an hour early, then another hour, you're about 4 to 5 hours for flying there roughly, but that is on number 3 of living in Utah is the higher cost of living. You really can't get away from this anywhere anymore. So is it really a higher cost of living? I think it just is, just based on you being used to say 15 or 20 bucks an hour, 40 bucks an hour, whatever your pay is. Used to be able to buy a lot, do a lot with your money than you can now. Rent is really, really high. Depends on the area of Utah that you choose. So I can't really cover all the different areas, but just know that rent is higher due to the increased cost of what housing costs. So just know that you're going to be paying a lot for rent here in Utah. Housing wise, I think we're around the 400, 500,000 average price of home in the state of Utah. Sure, there are areas where it's cheaper, and there are definitely areas where it's more expensive. Once again, that leads us to where are you wanting to live in Utah? Northern, central, or southern, or east Utah. Those are the kind of 4 main areas. You have St. George area, then you kind of have your Salt Lake area, then you have your Moab area out east, and up north you have your northern. So really, it's just going to depend on your cost of living, home prices, all of that is going to be based on which area in Utah you want to be, and you can reach out and we can definitely talk about the different areas. On number 2 of living in Utah, and that's the terrible drivers. So we thought we had really, really bad drivers in Nashville. I think Utah has worse drivers now that we've been here. They drive extremely fast on the freeway here. They may drive for you. They don't like to signal, which is pretty standard. I think a lot of people don't like to signal because they have jerks that'll speed up when you signal or won't let you in. The biggest thing that we've noticed since living here in Utah is the drivers really, really like to run red lights like they're being chased. So they just always run red lights. You're going to see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars go through after it's red, and you'll even see 1 or 2 that go through where it's plenty red and they no reason to have run it, but they still will go through the red light. So just know that, and if you have children that drive or you driving, make sure you take an extra half second or so, just enough time where the person behind you doesn't honk at you, but before you go, so that if you're the first person, you don't get into a fender bender. The other thing that they like to do is change lanes at the last second. So we've seen numerous people be in the fast lane of the freeway, shoot across 4 lanes of freeway, be in the fast lane on the freeway, shoot all the way across to the exit, 4 lanes of traffic, no issue. Heck, when we first moved here, we were on this street called Bangerter here in the Salt Lake City area. You'll have driven on it. And we watched a guy come from the 3rd lane and get off the freeway, spin his car into a 360 and then slam into the wall. Just know that people do really, really dumb stuff driving. So before I get to con 1, I also wanted to mention something about public transportation. And if you live in the Salt Lake City area where I happen to live, you're going to find that public transportation is pretty amazing. It is really, really good. They have a track system. They have a train you can take. So it's pretty good there. Outside of Salt Lake City and some of Utah County, really you're going to need a car to get around. You're not going to be able to do much else. They do have some buses, but for the most part, you're taking Uber and Lyft if you're in certain areas, or you're doing the Heel Toe Express if you don't have a car. That leads us to con number 1. If you haven't reached out to me, you got to pick up the phone and give me a call or send me a text. Because if you're considering making a move here to Utah, I'd love to hear from you. We can talk about the different amazing areas of Utah and get you on your way here to move into Utah because it's amazing. So that's why that's con number 1, because you haven't reached out to me yet. So until next time, be rad.